This is tofu tingas and taco beans. I've been on a soft food diet for 2.5 years, and I adjusted this recipe so that it would be something I could eat. I'm gonna make this sauce to go over my version of Mexican, which I call taco beans. First, for the beans, we need 1/3 cup red beans and 1/3 cup black beans. I'm gonna look through the beans to see if I can find any rocks or any beans that are discolored, and I'll pull those out, and then I'm gonna rinse the beans under the sink. I'm gonna do the same thing for the red beans. For veggies, I'm gonna use 2 stalks of celery and 2 mini peppers, although these guys are pretty big, and frozen corn. If you had fresh corn, that would work just as well. These are the veggies for the taco beans. For the sauce, I'm just gonna need 1 yellow onion. Normally on a soft food diet, when I cut things up, I cut them up really tiny. But since they're gonna be cooking in the Instant Pot is gonna make everything really soft and mushy. So I can cut it regular sized. And regular size saves time. I am cooking the beans in the Instant Pot. That, to me, is the fastest way to get dried beans cooked. It still takes quite a bit of time, but it's hands-off time where the machine is doing the work for you. Two stalks of celery. I'm going to cut the top off of each pepper. Cut them in half and get rid of the seeds. I'm not going to cut them quite as big as the celery. Cut them into about 1/4 to 1/2 inch slices, or 1/2 inch squares. They will get softer cooking in the Instant Pot, but I still feel like the skin can sometimes be hard to eat. And I almost forgot 1/4 of an onion. I'm going to cut them to pieces similar size to the pepper. So 1/4 to 1/2 inch. And about 1 cup of frozen corn. We need a can of diced tomatoes. Sometimes the size of the diced tomatoes is a little too big for me. So if that's a concern, you can put the tomatoes in the food processor and blitz them around until the tomato pieces are smaller, or till it's more like tomato sauce. I'm also going to need 1 cup of chicken stock or beef stock or water to cook the beans in. And then I'm going to need a packet of taco seasoning. I made my own taco seasoning, and I used 2.5 tablespoons of it. I pressure cook it for 45 minutes. For the sauce, the onion is going to be a big part of the flavor for the sauce. So you'll need 1 yellow onion that I would dice into small squares, 1 millimeter to 1/4 inch. I do it from the root end, where the little hairs are, to the stem end. And then I do it in the opposite direction to get my millimeter to 1/4 inch pieces. The taco beans have tomatoes in them and the sauce is tomato based. If you think that's going to be too tomatoey for you, then leave the diced tomatoes out of the taco beans. I'm going to start warming up the oil on the stove. I'm going to put a tablespoon of oil in the pan, any type of oil that you normally cook with. If you listen to chefs, they say olive oil has a strong or a distinct flavor that they don't think you should use unless you're cooking recipes that call for olive oil. I don't have that good of a palate, so I can't taste the difference. So I say cook with any oil that you like to cook with. We're going to need a big pinch of salt to go on top of the onion to help it cook. We're going to let the onion cook till it's really soft and translucent, but not quite caramelized. As soon as the onions are done cooking, I'm going to add in the tomato sauce, a teaspoon of bouillon, which is probably about 1 cube, and a teaspoon of the chipotle adobo sauce. I do the sauce and not the peppers. You can buy, the ones that I showed you was a jar, but it also comes in a can, and in the can you can see the peppers, and then I just take the sauce off of it. I have a lot of trouble with spice. I'm really a big baby when it comes to spice. So I start by adding 1 teaspoon of the adobo sauce in, and I've gone up to 3 teaspoons, and that's about as much as I can handle. I know I'm going to be eating this with a burrito bowl, so I'm going to have rice and beans and other stuff in there that's going to help so the heat from the sauce isn't going to be the main flavor. Once the onions are done cooking, they're translucent and really soft, I'm going to add in the tomato sauce. A teaspoon of chicken bouillon powder. This is probably more like 2 teaspoons of bouillon powder. I'm using a cup of chicken broth. If you don't want to use chicken broth and chicken bouillon, that's fine. You can just use water instead. A cup. I used a can of the chipotle peppers and adobo, and I poured the rest into a Ziploc bag. I don't know if you can see, but there are whole peppers in there, as well as liquid, and I'm just using the liquid. The original recipe says to use the entire can of chipotle peppers and adobo sauce, and that would be way too much for me. I'm going to use 2 teaspoons for me and my baby mouth. Okay, I'm taking a chance and doing 3 teaspoons. Now's when it gets to be a choose your own adventure. You could just pour the sauce over the taco beans and eat it that way. I grate a block of tofu on a box grater and add the tofu into the sauce. The original recipe uses chicken, but I can't eat chicken right now, so I'm going to use tofu instead and have the tofu simmer in the sauce.